prepare for lockdowns as they're seriously considering shifting back to a life where I think a lot of us want to forget. Now, if it was up to you, would you ever want to go back to those days?
This 3rd of July, we passed a milestone. It was the hottest day ever recorded on planet Earth. The next day, the 4th of July, was again a record-breaking day as the hottest day ever recorded on planet Earth. Just 2 days later, global temperature records was broken once more. In fact, our planet reached the hottest day ever recorded 4 days in a row last week. For millions of Americans who are unable to access shelter or air conditioning, this past week was deadly. At least 14 people died in Texas and Louisiana, and hundreds were sent to emergency rooms. In my home state of New York, flash flooding 2 days ago left one person dead and entire neighborhoods flooded. This is the climate crisis, and this is just the beginning. It is for this reason that immediate and bold action is necessary to rapidly decarbonize every single sector of the U.S. economy.
I know what you're asking. Why did Ron play a clip about climate change when he's talking about lockdowns? Well, I'm glad you asked because this next lockdown may actually be done because of climate change. Isn't that such a fun idea? Again, for the people who watch the channel regularly, they already get me. But for anybody who's new, that was sarcasm. Now, you've heard about how the planet is boiling, right? Y'all remember that?
Climate change is here. It is terrifying, and it is just the beginning. The era of global warming has ended. The era of global boiling has arrived. The air is unbreathable, the heat is unbearable, and the level of fossil fuel profits and climate inaction is unacceptable. Leaders must lead. No more hesitancy, no more excuses, no more waiting for the others to move first. There is simply no more time for that. It is still possible to limit global temperature rise to 1.5 degrees Celsius and avoid the very worst of climate change, but only with dramatic, immediate climate action.
Because, hey, what's scarier than warm? Boiling, am I right? Because they have to do their best to kind of put some scare into the people. Y'all know what I'm saying, right? Can't have soft terms like warm and all that. Now, this speech is from, how do you pronounce his name? Guterres? Yeah, Secretary Antonio Guterres of the United Nations has people wondering, will the United States fall in line and declare a climate emergency? One that could possibly end with millions of Americans once again in lockdown? I mean, we gotta ask this kind of stuff because we don't want to be caught off guard, right? Because as we all know, Trump, when he was president, he used the National Emergencies Act in 2020 because of the health crisis. So what makes us think that we're not going to do it again with climate change?
Unfortunately, we are seeing climate change in all of its guises, in the form of extreme heat, record wildfires, record floods. This is what we predicted decades ago would happen if we continued with business as usual. We continue to burn fossil fuels and generate carbon pollution and warm up the planet. As a climate scientist, the worst thing that can happen is that your predictions come true. And that's what's happening right now. We're seeing it play out in real time.
Come to think of it, haven't we seen multiple acts of chaos from nature within just, I don't know, like weeks or days between each other? It wasn't that long ago, right? Now, if you remember what I'm talking about, make sure to drop a like. And if you want the truth 24/7, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Now, for those who don't remember, let me go ahead and jog your memories.
As a meteorologist, we were watching Hurricane Dora slide well south of the island chain. It wasn't a concern for us. We thought it was fish food, literally not impacting land. But the fact is that it created a phenomenon with the winds that no one could have foreseen, and it caught people off guard in the middle of the night when people were sleeping. So you can imagine just how terrifying those moments were overnight when we started to see those little flashpoints, the little hot spots on satellite imagery that meteorologists look at. We started to see those flare up. And that was a concern, and we immediately started to recognize that there was a problem. Social media videos start pouring in. And then we start to learn about the communications going down, 911 not becoming available for residents over the western side of the island of Maui.
Now you have to think, were the people caught off guard because they were asleep, or is it because the alarms that are meant for disasters like this were not used? And of course, we can't have a conspiracy theory with just one instance, right?
Overnight, the National Weather Service warning of life-threatening flooding along the Malibu coastline, with reports of water rescues in the nearby community of Spanish Hills as what's left of Hurricane Hilary slams Southern California. Forecasters have warned of potentially catastrophic mudslides from the storm. Mud and water also flowing into this desert community last night near San Bernardino. Palm Springs could see an entire year's worth of rain just from the storm.
A flood in a desert? I mean, this is just uncanny. Oh, and let's not forget about the earthquake that was felt during a live TV shoot at the same time.
Chief, I'm really sorry to interrupt you right now. Our studio is shaking right now, so not only are we dealing with a tropical storm, but it appears we're now dealing with an earthquake.
And I'm not saying that these were not horrific tragedies, because they were, all right? But the timing of all of it is raising eyebrows, especially with what the World Economic Forum, namely Yuval Noah Harari, has said should be done to get ahead of climate change. Are you ready for this? So Harari suggested that in order for people to basically fall in line with radical changes that are needed to deal with the boiling of the world, basically is to put forth some radical measures. So one method is that all airlines be shut down because, who needs travel, right? And instead of locking down towns and cities and all that, we should instead have countrywide lockdowns. Now, I want to ask you right now, bluntly, do you think that these are good ideas? I mean, heck, why stop there, right? Why not just have rolling blackouts? Because who needs to keep the lights on? Who needs the air conditioning running in the hot day? It's not like hospitals rely on electricity to keep some of the most vulnerable patients safe, right?
Just got a breaking update from fire officials here. They say a baby was delivered during this evacuation process. There's not a lot of details at this point. We asked whether it was a little boy or a little girl. They weren't sure, but they said that baby and the mother are healthy. They are being taken care of. That baby was apparently delivered by battery-powered flashlights. No other lights that was in there. It was completely dark in that entire hospital. Not clear at this point whether it was delivered by hospital staff or firefighter paramedics or a combination of both. Still a lot of details, but again, baby was delivered during this evacuation process. This was a large-scale evacuation and still happening. This is still going on, still an active scene. 241 patients in total were affected by this outage. It happened around 11:30 last night, and firefighters say they started getting calls for an automatic fire alarm that was going off. When they got here, they realized this was going to be a large-scale emergency ahead of them. Again, 241 patients inside at the time of the outage, 28 of them critical, and this affected both the NICU and the OBGYN units. So you had babies, you had mothers, a lot of moving parts here, and those people had to be taken down the stairwell because the elevators weren't functional, and again, no lights, zero visibility, really difficult for firefighters.
Now, I kid you not, there was an article that came out from the LA Times that suggested that. Can you believe that? Tim Stewart, who is the president of U.S. Oil and Gas Association, a guy who obviously isn't a big fan of his switch up with climate change, he said something that I found pretty interesting, that if we eliminate fossil fuels, then we'll be partying. Now, the problem is that we'll be partying like it's 1699. Now, the threat that this may happen is not that far-fetched, especially with lawmakers introducing bills that target extreme weather conditions, much like what I've shown you, right? However, and this is either good or it's bad news for you folks, we're bound to see pushback from those in office as well. But here's a question for you. If you had a voice that went straight to Congress, the Senate, all the way to the White House, what would you say that is something that is needed? I mean, is it absolutely necessary to put us back into lockdowns if it's going to solve all these disasters? Make sure you guys let me know down in the comments. Now, before I go, I just want to thank you guys for hanging out. Appreciate the likes. Thanks for the subscribes, and I'm going to see you guys on the next one.